I'm Jeremy Gaffney. I'm here from Carbine Studios, and we're going to talk about our new game, WildStar.
The press event started. First we had a brief meeting and took down the signs and unveiled everything. People started streaming in kind of slowly, but eventually it just packed the entire booth and they were actually spilled out into the hallways. It was kind of cool to see so many people.
The crowd outside just chanting WildStar, WildStar. Everybody just going completely crazy for the game, and that was a great feeling because we've waited so long to do that, so it was brilliant.
So WildStar. I remember in 2014, 2015 when I initially played this game, like that's when it came out, which was almost 10 years ago now. I remember thinking this game was very unique and very different from the other MMOs that were currently out. It had a very similar art style to Ratchet & Clank that I was very drawn to because one of my favorite games, of course. And it had like very similar tone to it as well, where it was very comedic and it felt very like approachable, like the way it was advertised was very easygoing and like casual. That's what it felt like. But with playing the game, actually turning it on and playing the game, you can't get very far without it becoming a bit challenging, and I remember that's one of the reasons why I stopped. But it had something there that drawn everyone to it, and that's why it's one of those beloved games still that some people still like think back on, right? And now to this day, there's a community of people who got together and started this project called helensvhs, where the whole point is just to create private servers so that they can, keep this thing going because it's still beloved and people still care about this game. There's a lot of people who still think like maybe this potentially, if coming back now, it could work, right? At the time of recording this, it seems the page helensvhs, like their homepage, hasn't been updated in 2 years, and the last update on all of like the project statuses page says it hasn't been updated for a month. So I'm not sure if it's still active, but check it out in your free time, and if it is active during the time you check it out, go for it. There's also a petition on change.org to bring this game back, like present this petition to NCSoft and say bring it back and let's do it right. It has like 1,212 signatures at the time of recording this. If you want to sign this or share it to anyone that you might think will be interested in this, all the links are in the description below. So let's actually talk about what WildStar is and kind of dive into like the background here. WildStar was announced on August 17, 2011 during Gamescom, and after 3 years it came out June 3rd, 2014 into North America. And it was developed by Carbine Studios and published by NCSoft. Interesting facts about Carbine Studios, the developers of WildStar. The founders were 17 former members of Blizzard Entertainment, like their World of Warcraft development team, and that was in 2005. And it was like quoted a dev team made in heaven because it had a lot of personnel from Diablo 2, StarCraft, Metroid Prime, Fallout, like many other titles. So it was like a dream team almost. So it was created in 2005, and in 2007 it was acquired by NCSoft. The same year that Carbine Studios was founded, that same year they also started working on WildStar. This was like their baby project. This was their main thing. And it seems like some aspects of the game were a bit rushed. And it seemed like a lot of things during the development project were either canceled, forgotten about, or just pushed to the side for other things in place of that, which we'll get into later on. In 2014, the game released, WildStar, and then 2 years after that, in 2016, NCSoft announced that they were doing a little reorganization in quotes and laid off about 40% of the studio that was working on WildStar. This just also canceled the ongoing Chinese version of WildStar, and then 2 years after that, Carbine Studios was shut down. There were a lot of things going on behind the scenes, which we'll get into later on, but I'm just giving you like a brief synopsis of the events here. So the advertising for this game was very interesting. It was kind of backhanded a little bit. It was advertised as like this casual, funny space western MMO, which when playing the game, from my personal experience and from what I've read from other people, it became pretty challenging, and the game became a bit too hard to continue, and it felt a little lackluster with like the leveling systems, and it didn't feel like you were gaining much from it, and there was that drop off right after that. But getting into what the game was, there was like a initial free month of access that comes with the game. WildStar required like a monthly subscription. It states here $14.99. I don't remember paying that. I mean, I would have been 15 when this game came out. So I don't remember any payments, but I probably just had like the initial free month of access that came with the game. They also had like 3, 6, and 12 month options, similar to maybe Final Fantasy Online. There was also an option to buy playtime with in-game currency, which is something I haven't really heard of. Maybe other MMOs do that. Please leave in the comments below if other MMOs do that, but I never really heard of that. But interestingly, a bit before the game completely shut down, it did become free to play. So actually playing the game, you get an option of different races that you can pick from 2 different factions, the Dominion and the Exiled. Very cool names, of course. So you get a pick of those, your standard fighting classes and path system, which is very different and unique for this game. So in character creation within the Dominion faction, you get the choice of these races, which is Cassian, Draken, Chua, and the Mikari. And in the Exiled faction, you have the Exiled Human, the Orin, Granok, and the Mordesh. So the quick summary of these 2 factions is that the Dominion is basically an interstellar empire that claims the planet Nexus, the planet that you play on, as its rightful legacy. And then the Exiled is a ragtag alliance of refugees, outlaws, and mercenaries. And from there, you can choose what kind of fighting class you want to be. And also you can choose your path. Paths were a way to kind of customize your play journey and kind of give you specified quests different from how a completely other player would be playing the game. So a path you could choose was called Explorer. If you are into exploring hidden parts of the map or going into hidden caverns and finding little caches, supply caches in there, you can gain rewards and experience that way. Or you can go the scientist path, which is if you're into expanding your in-game brain or like just doing like analysis, collecting data, plants and whatnot, and doing like puzzles and stuff. There was also the settler, if you're into like constructing outposts, upgrading like the towns on the planet. It's basically like infrastructure and like supply cache quest runs and stuff like that. And then there was the soldier path, if you are just into fighting and that's all you give a shit about, you know. Actually playing the game was fun, of course, initially. It's not too hard to figure out. They have combat telegraphs, little areas in red which say like the enemy is going to attack there, and then you avoid that, and then you have your own specified actions similar to other MMOs specified to your fighting class, of course, which you just have an area of attack, you aim, and then that's how you attack. So the game basically had the structure skeleton of every other MMO, but it also had its own unique spin on it with like the pass system, which was a bit different, which kind of customized your play journey different from other players within the same game. So it had that. It also had the unique art style. It also had like a very silly kind of nature to the game, similar to like Ratchet and Clank, or maybe like the comedy of like Jack and Daxter, those kinds of games. So if it had like those things that kind of set it apart, why did it fail? Well, there's like a couple major things. It was competing with big MMOs at the time, like World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online or other games. Like this was during a time when there was like a lot of big MMOs out. According to GetHype, in its first week on Steam, WildStar had an average player count of 2,755 players per hour, while the game managed to crack the top 50 games at its peak with 5,011 simultaneous players. Over the course of the past week, the player count has been very slightly trending down and is currently close to falling out of the top 100 games on Steam. Looking at this graph, you can see like the immediate fall off right after release. It seems that there was something that was not clicking for a lot of people playing this game initially. So there was a lot of things behind the scenes that was occurring on the development side. It seems like there was poor leadership and a lot of scrapping ideas and things that would actually make the game fun for the consumer. So from an alleged ex-developer on WildStar, this game was destined to fail way before there was any issues with servers or not enough updates. Development on this project was a nightmare. The real development time frame was closer to 10-11 years. Coming onto the project at the 5-year mark, I soon realized that the leads and the big boys had no clue what a good game was, and they could not commit to any idea. There was like a lot of ideas not going through or just being scrapped immediately. One of the most prevalent issues with the game that I noticed was bad direction from top down. People like Tim Kaine specifically made way more problems than they were worth. Honestly, the guy was a total awful to work with, and almost nothing he did ended up in the game. His lack of leadership, I would say, was one of the reasons why the first 4 to 5 years of the game were almost completely thrown out. Wondering why there wasn't more raids and dungeons? Because the art director thought several already made levels didn't fit the story anymore. They threw them away, and he also made calls on gameplay, which is a whole nother nightmare. It seemed like the combat within the game itself wasn't up to par either. Here it says the gameplay was once good. I would say around the 7-year mark. 1v1 combat was very fun at this point, and each class felt very unique and fun. Unfortunately, most of that was thrown away and replaced with a lot of new stuff that was just not tested enough. Most of what launched in WildStar combat-wise was barely tested. Stuff like war plots was broken from start to finish. The designers leading war plots were absolute lazy trash and would normally put in broken systems and call them done just to appease their bosses. The only reason that war plots was even remotely playable on launch was because of some amazing talent on the 3D prop team. I am not joking, artists learned how to script to fix this crap. PvP was in general absolutely broken. The idea of telegraphs is pretty straightforward and seems to just work for most cases in combat, except in any fight larger that has more than 2 characters per team. Attack telegraphs drawing on the ground is very clear when you have a small amount of people fighting, but in medium to large PvP fights, pretty much every fight that matters, the entire ground becomes a multicolored disco dance floor. Casual to moderate gamers were like deer in headlights during the very few playtests that were had for the larger PvP battles. So much feedback was given by the teams that participated in these tests, and almost nothing was fixed about it. The leadership was god-awful. Proof of this, that most of the best things in the games that players loved the most, such as the double jump and the hoverboards, were things that were never planned or scheduled for by the leads. Those were passion projects. Double jump was made by an artist. The artist got in trouble for making double jump and eventually got fired for other reasons, never got credit either. Hoverboards were snuck in by an animator. He got written up for secretly working on hoverboards in his free time with other coworkers. The place was a prison of ideas, and everyone was getting shanked for even thinking that they wanted to think of something to improve the game. There was a lot of other issues with the game as well. People complained about poor optimization, poor optimization all around, too many bugs, general poor performance, and if you played on AMD, then you had a bad time. There was also a boring leveling experience where you go through an excessive amount of quest hubs and finish mind-numbingly easy quests to get small slivers of experience. And this was in 2014, 2015. The average person didn't have like the strongest gaming PC that you would have today. So there was a lot of inaccessibility for people playing this game. That was maybe another reason why there was a huge drop off after the initial release of the game. If it feels great and easy to play for the majority, then there are enough people in the game that those end game things with extremely high barriers become sort of an aspirational pinnacle. However, if it's poorly optimized, so only a few with great PCs can play, then there's not enough player base to support the hardcore at the top structure of the MMO. Some people mentioned quitting the game after 2 weeks because they found that there was nothing to do. That probably also plays into what we read earlier, where they were mentioning there were a lot of things that just weren't making it into the game, or were just getting cut or not even thought about really for the game. And also from what I was mentioning before, that there may have been like a miscommunication with the advertising of this game, because it did feel a very silly, comedic, kind of casual with the advertising. And then when you are actually playing the game, when you get to a certain point, it just becomes hard and challenging. As someone who plays high level content in all MMOs I've played, WildStar was pretty hard. It had a decent number of fights that would still be kind of difficult nowadays. So going over all this information, it definitely felt like there was a lot of barriers for WildStar on its release. But at its bare bones and what it was and what it could have been, it had the concept. There was an art style, there was a really cool vibe, it was funny. The voice acting was really good from this game. The music in the game was really good. It just seemed like there was poor leadership and very bad business decisions that made the game struggle. And to be honest, it might be a lot of the nostalgia playing here, but it definitely feels like this could have been a long-standing MMO if it was done right, and if it had the same kind of love and leadership that it needed, similar to World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online or Final Fantasy XIV. Like, it just needed the proper structure behind the scenes to make this thing work. I hope everyone that worked on this game is doing great things now, because it seems like, from what I'm reading, it was a bit of a hellscape behind the scenes. Yeah, I really had high hopes for this game. A lot of people did, and a lot of people still do. Like I said in the beginning, there's that whole Nexus Forever project, because there's people that still believe that this game could have been something great. And there's that change.org petition that is still up, and if you want to sign it, it's there. The petition's there in the link below. All my links for all the information that I've discussed here is in the description below. So that's all my thoughts on this. Thank you so much for listening, and if I missed any gems of knowledge regarding this, please let me know in the comments, and leave a suggestion for any other games I should talk about, and leave a like and subscribe. Thank you. Okay, that's it. Bye.